Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Livingston, back for another episode of PR Patter, my weekly show where I get to chat with the amazing people from across my public relations and marketing network. And today, I'm so delighted to have Susan Villamina with me. She is a sales and training expert with over 30 years of experience in all facets of training and development, including leadership training, communication skills, executive coaching, and sales management training. So, as you can probably guess, today our topic is selling. She's a widely regarded expert in business development and has helped hundreds of CEOs, business owners, and individuals achieve substantial success in their business. Susan is a founder and partner in S&R Associates, a New York-based consulting firm and affiliate of Sandler Training, specializing in skills and communications training. She's a published author and sought-after speaker, and was honored by 914 Inc. magazine.
I do want to clarify something, and I should have updated this. I'm actually currently with Chartwell 17, which is a Sandler affiliate out in New York City.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
So today's topic is, why is selling so challenging sometimes? And I wanted to start by talking about this amazing system that you have at your fingertips. Now, why is it so important to have a selling system in place?
Well, I think the main reason why you want to have a selling system is because prospects oftentimes don't know exactly how to buy what it is we have. And so there's a tendency for buyers to come in and say, here's the problem I'm looking to solve. How much is the cost of your product? And then from there, try and make a decision. And so what we need to do as professionals, as sales professionals, is guide them through an informed decision, not just here's the problem and what's the cost. And so having a system enables you to dig deeper and really look at the situation that they're in, what's happening as a result of their problem that they're trying to solve, and really look deeply at whether or not it makes sense to invest in fixing that problem. So sometimes it feels like, it's a nice to have. Oh, we have this problem, let's just fix it. But sometimes you have to look a little more closely, particularly in more complex types of purchases.
It sounds like, well, and I know from being a salesperson at times myself, but also as being the recipient of of working with a salesperson, right?
Right.
That, I think what you're saying is that you don't really want the customer to feel like they're being sold all the time.
Well, that's the other thing too. I'm glad you brought that up. When you have a system, a good system, and I'm partial, obviously, to the Sandler system, but when you have a good system, it's very buyer focused, not sales focused, right? So part of the challenge we have when we go into a sales interaction is we have a lot of things going on in our mind about what it is we need or what it is we want to communicate. And so we may need to sell this deal because we have a goal that we have to meet. And so we sort of miss the mark a little bit. And when you have a system that you can rely on, it also keeps the salesperson on track, right? And
I love that. Right.
Not being taken down a rabbit hole on conversations that can sometimes happen if you have a friendly buyer, right? Sometimes you meet buyers that are friendly and they want to talk, and they have a lot of interest, and you can find yourself really not getting to the heart of the issue, and that is this problem painful enough to have to solve? So, it's for the salesperson too, actually.
So it's giving you kind of a stepped process, a framework to work within.
Exactly. That it should have a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? So with Sandler, we start with bonding a rapport on somewhat of a deeper level. And that bonding rapport is really about meeting that person where they are. their personality, how they like to communicate, where they are in the process. And so, we kind of we have to adjust ourselves sometimes, right? I have a tendency, because I'm from New York and I'm Italian, and so I have a tendency to talk fast, to want to get to the bottom line quickly, right? I'm a high D personality on the disc profile, and when I meet somebody who's more cautious in how they communicate, I have to be careful. I have to slow down. And that actually starts the bonding process. Because if I come in with all of my New York
It's like,
Italian,
it's overwhelming.
I'm going to lose them. Exactly. And so the other thing is, you have to have it sort of established with that buyer. What are we going to do here today? What is our goal here today? Right? What do they want to accomplish? What did we want to accomplish? And what is the expected outcome of this meeting?
Ah,
Well, a lot of times we sort of go in and we're like, okay, so what's going on? And again, if they're friendly, you're right in there. And so we're not putting a framework around this conversation, right? We need to put a framework around why are we here and what do we want to accomplish? And assuming we accomplish that, what is our next step? What is our clearly defined next step? So that sort of sets the stage for having a more productive conversation with someone.
I love how you describe that, Susan, because it almost feels like you're going into this conversation with a prospective client, and you're almost partnering with them.
It's funny you say that. I have a colleague of mine, and he says he's fond of saying that what we do and what we need to do as sales professionals. I'll put Sandler aside for a moment, but what we need to do as selling professionals is get closer to our buyers and not do things that push us further away. And we push them away without even realizing it sometimes. Like, for example, it's the third week of the month. Now, this is June, right? We're coming into the third week of the month. And a
And
lot
the
of
end
our,
of the fiscal year for some people.
that's right. And a lot of our clients are really under the gun to close business by the end of the quarter. Right away, you've created a difficult dynamic with the buyer because their needs and your needs are not aligned. The buyer doesn't care that you have a June 30th deadline.
Right? They don't.
And nor should they, right? So yeah, um, we have to really check ourselves before going into conversation with somebody. And I always say the first step in bonding a rapport is starting with caring enough about the person that you're talking to, regardless of personality and style. Because there's always, even the tough ones, there's always something nice inside there. I always found, like, my toughest clients, there's something really nice and tender inside each of them. So you have to go into that conversation caring enough about that person to want to understand the world that they're living in as it relates to the problem they're looking to solve. And you can't do that if you're thinking, oh boy, I'm $100,000 short, and this is $150,000 opportunity. If I could just get over the finish line. And what it does is it causes the salesperson to say things unintentionally
Yeah.
that cause the buyer to back away. Things like, if we could get the PO in by the end of the month, I can get you better pricing.
Uh,
And in some cases, the salesperson's like, look, this is a benefit to the buyer. And maybe it is. But by saying, get this in by June
you're
30th,
making it more about you than the customer.
right, as opposed to saying, I don't know that I can, but if I could get better pricing, assuming we were able to come to an agreement by the end of the month, would that be meaningful to you? And let the buyer say, yeah,
Wow, that is
that
such
would
a
be
different
meaningful to me.
scenario than, you can get a discount if you give me the PO by the end of the month.
Right, right, right. So yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about about the Sandler system and how you've told us a little bit already, but can you
Okay.
go into it a little bit more? Because I think
Yeah.
it's a really, my husband, as you know, has gone through Sandler and he
Yeah.
swears by it
Yeah.
to this day, and he went through it many years ago,
Yeah.
and so I'd love to hear more about it because I think it's fascinating.
Okay. So Sandler is a what do you need to do as well as a how you need to do it type of a system. So I'll talk about the what, because um, the how would you'd have to invite me back 10 times over, and we'd have to take one piece at a time, and then we'd have to dig in on each of the hows. But the what has to happen in a sales interaction is like I mentioned earlier, right? You have to meet people where they are. You have to come into that conversation with a willingness to be open, to not be scripted, and to put your own needs aside. That is critical. That is absolutely critical. Put your own needs aside for the time being that you're talking to this person and immerse yourself into their world. You have to have an agreement about what we're going to talk about, right? We call that an upfront contract. And it includes, look, we agreed to meet for an hour. Is that still good? In order for this time to be meaningful to you, what would you like to cover today? What would you like to make sure we get covered in this
Yeah,
hour?
so again, making it more about them.
Absolutely. Now, you have to tell them what your agenda is, right? So, in a sales interaction, your agenda should always be to better understand the buyer. That's the goal. My goal in this meeting, Julie, would be to better understand what you're experiencing in your world, what's happening around this issue that you wanted to talk with us about, so that I can decide and determine whether or not I can help you. If I can help you, I'll let you know that. If I can, I'll let you know that too. Assuming I can, at the end of this meeting, we'll decide together whether or not it makes sense to have a next step.
Yeah.
And we can decide what that next step looks like together, right? Because what I want for a next step, a lot of my clients do demos. So, they may want to do a demo. Well, you know what? Maybe a demo isn't the right thing to do yet. Maybe the prospect has something else in mind.
Right. And
So,
and also you want to make them feel like you want to you're showing them that you want to get to know them first.
right. But that has to be true. You see, this is kind of where it gets a little challenging. You really have to want to deep, deep, deep down inside. I'm naturally curious about people. My guess is you're the same way.
Yeah.
You're naturally curious about people. And so it's easy for you to get into somebody's world and really see it through their lens. For some, it's a little harder. It's not a fault. It's just they have to work a little harder at it. So you have to start with yourself first. I want to know what is happening in this person's world so that I really can decide, do I have something that can help them? Now, the fact that I can help somebody is only part of the formula. Because personally, I felt this since the very first time I saw Sandler. I'm like, why isn't everybody buying from me? Like, I don't understand. We have magic dust. I used to say to my mentor at the time, we have the magic dust. Why isn't everybody buying from us? And he said, and I'll never forget it, stayed with me for the 33 years I've been here. Just because you think you have magic dust doesn't mean they do.
Right.
And that was an important piece to my foundation, that I'm going to meet a lot of people that I know I can help that aren't going to buy from me. And that's going to be the result of one of a couple of things. Either I did a bad job, right? I mean, I'm 33 years in, trust me, I still have bad sales calls sometimes.
We're all human, right?
Right. Um, or, they don't have the money. They're not willing to put in the time. There's a whole host of reasons why somebody doesn't, want to work with us. So really, that first step is let's establish some agreement about what we want to do here today. And the reason why we do that also is because it does transmit to the buyer what you thought was going to happen here isn't what's going to happen. See, you thought I was going to come in and I was going to start to ask you some questions, and then I was going to present to you and I was going to give you pricing, and then you and I were going to get into a chase. Like, that's what prospects expect to happen. And so you're sort of letting them know, we're not going to do that here today because it matters to me that I understand really what's going on in your world.
Right.
So
And I
that's
want to build a longer term relationship with you. I'm not one and done.
right. Well, that's, oh, yeah, that's a good one, Julie.
I mean,
Yes.
so many people, um, so many people will say, I hate salespeople. And I mean, why do you, I'm kind of asking you something that you already kind of talked about a little bit, but why do you think that's so?
Well, I think it's what exactly what we're talking about here. It's the feeling that I actually have an answer for that. Sandler does a lot of studies because we have thousands and thousands of owners that we work with. Gartner has done some studies around this, and I believe it was a Sandler study where they polled the business owners in in our network globally, and the thing that came back was something like, don't quote me on the percentages, doesn't really matter,
No.
78%, 83% of buyers felt that the interaction they were having with salespeople was more transactional than relational,
Mm.
and that buyers, believe it or not, given a choice, would prefer to self-serve. That was a painful thing to hear, that they don't want to have to deal with us. And it's because it feels transactional. And what they did say is that they are interested in talking to trusted advisors. And so, as sales professionals, we really need to do two things. One is we need to really recognize that we're a trusted advisor. We're not a salesperson where there's this prospect here, salesperson here, right? We're equal to buyers. And that's because we're business people at the end of the day. All we're doing is talking about whether or not what we have is something that you need
Yeah.
and want and can afford, right? So that sort of sets up the real heart of the conversation, which is, we all talk about this thing called pain, right? And it's really understanding what pain is. Pain is not a problem. A problem is, if you're in the managed software, IT managed services space, pain isn't, um, I don't like my current provider. That's not a pain. I want to replace my current provider. The pain lies in what is happening with that current provider that has caused you to get to this place. What is the impact of what has happened with your current provider?
Right.
And is this something that's a priority, or is this something down the road? I'm okay if it's down the road, but I just want to know that early on. I don't want to find out after I've gone through a presentation that, well, this really isn't a priority right now. So we want to find out, is this a priority now, something you're thinking about? Or is this something that is current for you? What's the commitment level to switch providers? It's not easy to switch providers. So how serious is this problem, and is it serious enough for you to invest the time and money in a new provider? And so oftentimes we short circuit the pain step, and we're not digging deeper to, what have you done to try and solve this problem? How long have you been living with this problem? What happens if you don't fix this problem? And if the answer to that is in, oh, no, that's not an option. I have to fix this problem. Whether I fix it with you or somebody else, I have to fix it. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And you can't just jump there. You really have to listen to the stories and the examples, because you want that person to go through the journey personally, to decide for themselves, is this serious enough?
I was just going to ask you about the role of listening in the whole sales process, and how um, that's kind of a unique thing.
Yes. Well, it starts with desire, right? You have to want to listen. You really have to care. And sometimes we're feeling transactional and it's hard to care. And it's not an indictment on salespeople. They've been trained that way. And you have to be untrained. The best salespeople out there are the ones that leave the buyer feeling comforted. Because when you understand somebody, they feel like you can solve the problem. And so it all lies right there. And then, you know what? If somebody really feels like you can help them, money issues go away.
Yeah.
They'll find money.
They become secondary. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And if you're in a complex sale, they help you navigate the decision team, right? They don't get in the way. They don't say, no, 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 I'll
Yeah.
report to everybody.
I just went through this with a client who I was, renewing a contract with, and there have been some issues getting paid from this client, and
Mhm.
Fortune 500 company, and they wanted to work with me very badly, and so they took those extra steps to to get me into the system and make it work.
That
So
that's a
I've seen
perfect
that in
example.
play, and it really says a lot about the relationship.
That absolutely says it all, right? They don't get in the way. The person you're working with doesn't get in the way. They create the way,
That's right.
right? And so that's an indicator that you have an issue. So if they're starting to give you trouble down the road, that's an opportunity to go back and say, I get the sense, Julie, that you might not be 100% sure this is a good way to go. Maybe if we talk a little bit more about what your thoughts are, we can decide whether or not this is something you do want to champion, or it's just something that maybe from your experience within the organization, you don't see the fit here. You have to come back and allow that person rather than try and push through them, because that's another thing, right? We keep trying to push through the person who's stalling. Don't,
Right.
because you need to understand them too.
Right.
Right?
Be right. And if you push them, you're not going to get anywhere.
Absolutely not. That no, no, you know what you'll get? You'll get ghosted.
Yeah.
It's too easy now for buyers to hide. It wasn't as easy back when
Right. When we
I
were
started
reliant on the
sales.
phone, we're not relying on the phone anymore.
Right. Or even walking in,
Right.
right? You could walk in back in the day, right? Nobody walks in today.
No.
So yeah, I mean, I think it really does lie in that. And then the next step is to talk about the investment, right? What is the ROI here? What is the value of this problem? Right? We call it quantifying the pain. What's the value of the problem?
Mm,
Because if the value of the problem, what are the KPIs that they're measuring? What are the things that are costing them money as a result of this problem? It's not usually just one thing, right? It could be manpower, it could be equipment down, it could be a whole host of things. So what is it where's the cost in all this in this problem? Lost revenue, lost sales, lost turnover, whatever it is the value of that loss worth the investment? And we have a saying at Sandler that I think every business owner should have, and that is, our goal is to ensure that you don't pay me more money than you get as a result of working with me. So where is the cost here, right? That's really the budget conversation. It's not as much how much here's the cost of my product, although that's part of it, but it's really, what is the cost of this problem, and is it worth this investment?
again, I just love how you're articulating this, because again, it goes back to partnering with the prospect.
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
really showing them every step of the way that you're a partner. You're not just trying to sell them.
Right. I appreciate you bringing it back around to that,
No, that's
because
critical. I know that's critical, because
yes,
whenever I myself have felt like I'm being sold, it becomes impossible for me to move forward.
right, right. No one wants to be sold. Nobody
No.
turns around and says, hey, I bought this new thing that the salesperson sold me. Right? No one ever says that.
No.
You don't want to be sold. We want to make an informed buying decision. Informed is critical because their problem may need to get fixed, but maybe you're not the solution. And you need to know that too. So if you're not really uncovering the heart and the guts of this issue, then you can't make an informed decision yourself to say, this really is something we can help you with, or you know what, we fall a little short on that. And I don't know, there are other companies that are really strong in that area, right?
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
again, if you've got to meet your quota at
Yeah.
the end of the month, you're plowing through.
Yeah.
And then buyers end up disappointed. And we know the cost of that, right? The cost of a disappointed buyer.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, it's terrible.
right.
Susan, I know you do a lot of training of salespeople, and I'm wondering, how do you change their mindset about selling? Because you're taking them into a whole new realm.
Yeah. So we're a self-help organization. And if our clients don't come to us wired to want to learn and to let go of some old ways of doing things, then I can't help someone. Now, I've had to have some authentic conversations with people that, you know what, it's going to take a little bit more. You're going to have to step outside your comfort zone and do something that you weren't inclined to do, and recognizing that if you fail, that's a good thing, because now you know what not to do. The reason why I can say with absolute certainty that our material works, 100% certainty, our material works, because I won't teach anything that I don't know for a fact works. And that's because I've made every mistake in the book with everything we teach. I have pushed people over the edge. I've gotten too bold. I've not been, I have not finessed something enough. I've missed things. I've gotten into conversation without an upfront contract. And I'm halfway through going, oh no, I forgot my upfront contract. And now I got it. Now the prospect's saying, oh, well, our time is up. And I'm thinking,
uh,
I didn't ask. How are you doing on time? And so you have to be willing. You have to be willing to make mistakes with the material. And so we're fortunate. We're fortunate. I would say at this point in my practice, very few, if any, come through the door that aren't willing to do the work.
that's
Um,
great.
so yeah, yeah, and it doesn't matter how long you've been in sales. It just doesn't matter. In fact, the longer you've been in sales, the more our material resonates, because you've been on that hamster wheel for 10 or 15 years. And now you're like, wait a second. That's like the first thing when I first saw Sandler. I'm like, what? Wait a second. I can control the process? I know I felt a victim of the buyer's process. But with Sandler, both people are in control.
I love that. I love how it works. I really do. It just makes so much sense,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, it's good stuff.
Well, Susan, this has been a great conversation. I know we had some bumps in the beginning, but
Yeah,
I'm really glad you
that's
came. I
okay.
hope you are too.
That's
Um,
okay. You are delightful, really. I love seeing you, and I really appreciate you inviting me on.
oh,
This
was
was
my total pleasure.
this was great.
And
Nothing makes me
we will be
happier than to talk about sales.
Oh, great. This video will be on YouTube. It was on Facebook and, of course, LinkedIn. Everyone, if you like what you heard, please reach out to Susan at susan.villamina@sandler.com. It's on the banner here on screen. And if you're interested in raising your executive visibility on LinkedIn, check out my website, wantleverage.com, and download my tip sheet, Make Your C-Suite Stand Out on LinkedIn. And I'll see you next time on PR Patter.
All right.